Hello, you are listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio, your global feel-good radio. You can listen to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio on podcast platforms all over the world. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 best-selling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Now, I'm really excited about our guest today, Hale Dwoskin. Hale Dwoskin is the author of the Sedona Method and the co-author of Happiness is Free and It's Easier Than You Think. You can find out more about Hale Dwoskin and his wonderful work at his website, Sedona.com. Welcome, Hale Dwoskin.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So, Hale Dwoskin, first of all, for our audience, what exactly is the Sedona Method?
It's a very powerful yet deceptively simple way of tapping a natural ability that we all have, but unfortunately most of us have forgotten how to use. And that's our natural ability to let go of stress and tension, anxiety, fear, frustration, anger, all the thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and ideas that prevent us from living life fully and being that which we truly are. So it is natural, yet most of us have been trained out of it. And once you relearn it as an adult, you can never lose it again.
That is a beautiful explanation. And for our audience, I have to tell a story about why letting go is so important. So this morning I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was working with a client in England. And I'll just say, as a child, she experienced just a horrific amount of abuse. And so now today, as an adult, she has tremendous physical pain. Okay.
Mhm.
And she and I had a session last week. And after our session last week, she slept like a baby and felt really good. And then, unbeknownst to me, the following day, she had a session with another healer. And during this session, they discussed the past. Okay. And they basically brought up cellular memories of all of this abuse.
Mhm.
And as a result of bringing up this energy, this frequency, these memories, the thoughts and feelings of the abuse, again, then it just re-triggered her pain. Okay. And I tell this story because I'm sure this has happened to all of us. And I explained to her, I said, well, if I say to you, think of biting into a lemon. So let's all just do that right now. So think about biting into a lemon. And all of a sudden, the taste inside my mouth has changed. I feel that sour taste. And we forget that thoughts are things, and that every thought that I think and every thought that you think is literally creating your body chemistry, your brain chemistry on a moment to moment basis. And so frequently when we go into the past and when we engage therapies where we talk about the past, especially when it's trauma related, when we're reliving that, you are literally recreating that chemistry. So, Hale Dwoskin, any comments about that?
Well, several actually. First off, just thinking of the past, yes, it may bring up old patterns. Yet those patterns are operating all the time, even when we're not thinking about them. In other words, our conscious thoughts, which is a very small fraction of all thinking, uh, aren't as powerful as we think they are. And when we try to manage them without dealing with all the thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and ideas that have been suppressed or denied since birth, the it's like trying to um, steer a ship uh, in, without holding on to the wheel, but by taking a hair and tying it to the wheel and thinking that's going to influence where the ship ends up. It actually doesn't, because conscious thought, conscious feeling is really just the result of past thought and past feeling. And none of that belongs to us. It is just what is apparently happening. So we're not as in charge as we think we are of our conscious thoughts. And when we think we are in charge of our conscious thoughts and feelings, what happens is we're so busy fighting with what we're thinking and feeling that we're constantly suffering, constantly struggling, because we have judgment sandwiches. We have judgments about our judgments about our judgments about our judgments about our judgments. So there's no need to avoid any thought, feeling, belief, or idea. In fact, if you allow yourself to simply embrace or allow what's being felt, what happens is as it comes up into awareness, it dissolves. And we're less and less subject to the I'm trying to think of I just heard a quote, but I only heard part of it, so I can't, it's something from Shakespeare. But basically, the slings and arrows of whatever,
Outrageous fortune.
outrageous fortune, right? That the more we just allow what is to be as it is, and the more there's a recognition that none of that is personal, life just is unfolding as it does, and our level of suffering goes down dramatically. And what the Sedona Method, or what the releasing is all about, is allowing ourselves to release that which pulls us off center. And we work not at the level of thinking, we work at the level of feeling, and even deeper than that. And by doing that, things clear out very quickly.
Beautiful. And I've seen graphics where, they show a mountain underwater, and I think the conscious mind is only about 3%. The unconscious mind below the water is about 97%.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Right.
I've seen similar diagrams, but I think it's being overly optimistic, thinking that it's 3%.
We human beings are so funny. So, Hale Dwoskin, in your professional opinion, why do you think it is so difficult for most of us humans to let go of the past?
Oh, it's very simple. Well, there's several things. The first thing is we believe we are our past. We
Mm.
think we are the story that we tell ourselves and other people about our lives. We think we are our successes and our failures. We think we are our wonderful experiences and our bad experiences. We think we are the storyline and the description of the person. And this isn't actually true. We're not the past. We what is, or we are that which actually is this that's apparently happening. And so the past can be very meaningful and can be very important to us, yet it isn't who we are. And that's actually relief. as you start to recognize that you're not your story, no matter how negative or positive it is, as that is recognized, then there's just an appropriate responding to whatever is happening. And there's a sense of ease, a sense of openness, a sense of naturalness that is life itself. And if everything feels less and less personal, but more and more beautiful.
Now, I think about so many of us have trouble like letting go of our clutter, letting go of our past, our old stuff.
Yes.
How can we get better at letting go mentally, emotionally?
Well, actually, why don't uh, I don't know how close we are to our first commercial break,
Go
but
ahead.
what I'd like to do is explain what I mean by letting go, and then if we have time, I'll do a process. Otherwise, we can do it after the next break.
Awesome.
But let me do the explanation first. Uh, and if you're listening to this at home, do this with me. If you're in a car, just imagine it. Pick up at some object, a pen or pencil, anything that you'd feel comfortable dropping to your lap, the floor, or desk, whatever, your couch, and just hold it in your hand. Now, this object represents our thoughts, our feelings, our beliefs, our ideas, everything that appears to be limiting us in any way. And your hand represents either your gut, because we often feel it in our center, and or just simply awareness. So now close your hand tightly around the object. Now, if we did this long enough, yes, good, go for it. If we did this long enough, it would start to feel really uncomfortable, yet somehow familiar. So, but that's enough gripping. Now, roll the object around in your hand. Now, is this object attached to your hand? Now, obviously not. Yet it's how we usually feel when we discuss emotion. We usually feel, at least in the English language, we usually say, I'm sad. We don't even say I feel sad. We say I'm sad, or I'm angry, or I'm furious, or whatever it is. We actually believe we are this thing that is simply appearing in consciousness or appearing in the body. So but it's not as attached to us as we think it is. And so close your hand lightly around the object, turn your hand upside down, and just let go of the object. That's how easy it can be to let go of any uncomfortable or unwanted emotion. Now, that's counterintuitive because we would think, well, if it's that easy, we would have done it already. No, not necessarily. Again, because we think we are our emotions, at a certain point, we don't realize that we aren't, and they can be let go of. So the core learning is feelings are just that, feelings. They're not facts. They're not you, and you can let them go. And we usually treat how we feel about something as factual. If you think about your life, you can think of times where you were absolutely certain that someone was angry at you or afraid of you or didn't like you or whatever it was. And then on further discussion or just through wisdom over time, you discovered that that whole way you were seeing the world was never really accurate. And so feelings are not facts. They're just energy. And they aren't you, even when it feels that way. And you can let them go.
Great explanation.
So, do we have time to do a
Absolutely.
process?
For
Okay.
sure. This is
All right. All right, good.
Because most of
So,
this has so much we could let go of, right?
yes. So, I'm going to take us through a process together. I won't put you on the spot by taking you through the process. I'll take all of us through the process. And this first process that we'll do, if we have time or it feels appropriate, we might do more than one. But this first process is one of the simplest ones we teach. And we usually share it freely because we really want people to be able to start doing this without ever needing to read my book or to take one of our programs. We really, because this is natural, it's something that we often give as a gift to people, and even that produces profound results. So the first thing we'll do is just simply focus on anything in your life that you're wanting to change or improve. Anything, it doesn't matter what. And the next is there'll be an invitation to just welcome or allow or be present with the feeling. And by the way, that in and of itself sometimes is liberating, and we'll talk about that more later. And then I'll ask three simple questions. The first question is, could you let it go? And if you are able to drop the pen or even imagine dropping an object, then I know you can. The second question is, would you let it go? And would you just means, are you willing to? And if you're trying to do this on your own, what I recommend is if you're struggling, ask yourself, would I rather hold on to this thought or feeling? Would I rather suffer with this problem? Would I rather just hurt? Or would I rather be free and have my goals? Generally, the answer is yes to that, which makes it easier to let go. And the last one is when. And when is an invitation to decide to do it now. Now, you you might find that letting go happens on all three questions. You might find you save it up to the very end. It might be subtle at first, or the changes might be profound. We've had people let go of fears and phobias they've had for decades just through practicing this one practice, even though it's amazingly simple and straightforward. So, in this moment, could you just simply pause or stop? And by the way, you can do this with eyes open or eyes closed. Now, don't do it with eyes closed if you're driving. and and could you just notice what is before we even get into the process? Or could you just be present with what is present? Now you'll notice just this is settling. Because we're always so busy trying to do something with or about what is, or trying to get somewhere else, that we rarely just settle and be. And then allow yourself to think of something in your life that you have some feelings about, something you're wanting to change or improve. And it doesn't matter what it is. And then could you welcome whatever that stirs up inside of you? Could you just let it be here? Allow it. Be present with it as best you can. And then again, as best you can, just for now, could you let it go? Just could you? Would you? When? So that's just one round. We'll do two more. One thing I recommend is think about this as little as possible. I don't mean you shouldn't think about it, but try to just feel the answer and feel the response as best you can, as opposed to debate it or think about it. And yes or no will still produce the same result, as far as answering the questions internally. So again, focus on that same thing or anything else that you're wanting to change or improve, and then notice how you feel. And could you just welcome it or allow it? Be present with it. And then, as best you can, just for now, could you let it go? Just could you? Would you? When? See, it gets a little easier as you practice it. So let's just do it one more time. Now, again, if you're not really sure yet, those of you listening, just know that the more you practice it, the easier it gets. And you've had a lifelong practice at suppressing or expressing emotion. And most of us have forgotten how to actually let it go. So give it time. But you may already notice that you're feeling calmer or more open. So let's run through it one more time. Again, focus on that same thing or anything else that you're wanting to change or improve. And could you just allow or welcome or be present with whatever is coming up? And then, as best you can, just for now, could you let it go? Just could you? Would you? When? Okay, good. So if you were if you were doing this on your own, you could say could I, would I, and when, or you can do it in the way we did it together. Could you, would you, or when. Either one works.
Beautiful. And I so appreciate you sharing that with us. I felt a lot of energy moving in my body. And with that, let's take a break and listen to a message from one of our commercial sponsors here at UK Health Radio. And we'll be right back with Hale Dwoskin, the author of the Sedona Method, and learn more about the healing power of letting go. Hale Dwoskin, author of the Sedona Method. I work with a lot of people as a medical intuitive healer who have pretty serious illnesses, right?
Yes.
And one of the common denominators I find with something serious like cancer is lack of forgiveness. It seems to be a common thread in all my cancer clients.
Mm-hmm.
And with all my cancer clients, one of the things that I really encourage is the practice of forgiveness. So here we are at the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. Would you share for our audience with your clients some of the healing benefits that you've witnessed when people actually let go?
Sure. But let me say a word about forgiveness first. The sometimes we can struggle with forgiving. And sometimes it's easier, and in fact, in my experience, it's usually easier to let go of the emotion first, and then forgiveness naturally follows. Yet if you're trying to forgive over your anger or over your fear or over your disappointment and grief, it's sometimes almost impossible. Yet if you release the emotions first, then you find you don't even have to effort at forgiving. It just happens spontaneously. So what have I seen? So specifically on health and healing, first off, we've never tried to treat, diagnose, cure, or advise about any physical or emotional illness. We just deal with the emotional component. Yet, I've seen people, uh, first off, who have had insomnia,
Mm.
or what was labeled as insomnia, for decades, have it disappear after just one or two releasing sessions. We've had people with severe fears and phobias have them disappear unbelievably quickly. We've had people with migraine headaches uh, release the emotion that was triggering the headache and have it the headaches and have them never occur again. We've had we've had people who had very serious diagnoses uh, release the emotional component and either have the condition itself clear up directly, or all of a sudden they were able to find the right practitioner, the right doctor, the right medical routine to support themselves in their healing, and or all the things they were already doing that should have been working but weren't start to work. And there's there's just so much. We've had people with severe addictions
Mm.
release the emotion that the addiction was a compensation for, and the addiction itself fell away, including things like alcohol, drugs, and cigarettes,
Mm.
and the addiction to suffering.
Mm.
We all have an addiction, excuse me, to suffering, and that can be released as well. Our addiction to being small, to suffer, to think that we're separate from all that is.
I just really want to thank you, Hale Dwoskin. The work that you're doing is so important and so profound. As a medical intuitive healer, one of the things that I do is I look for the emotions behind any or all illnesses, right? Because people
Yes.
call me up and they ask me about everything. And there's always an emotional component, because whenever we have dis-ease, it's always happening on all 5 levels. So what are the 5 levels? Your spiritual body, your mental body, which is the thoughts and beliefs, your emotional body, which is what we're talking about right now, the emotions, and then the energy body, and then the physical body. And once we understand that dis-ease begins in the energy field and comes into the physical, and then when we want to heal, we have to release out of the physical, out of the energetic, out of the emotional, out of the mental, out of the spiritual. True healing happens, in my professional opinion, 30 years of experience, when we work on all 5 levels.
Yes.
And what I find is, if you don't release the emotion, it's funny. It's like you fix your upper back and it goes to your hip, and you fix your upper back and your hip, and then it goes to your knee, and then it goes to your kidney, and it just moves around, right?
Yes.
A good visual of this, if anyone has ever seen the movie Young Frankenstein, and there's a wonderful scene where there's one of the characters has a hump, and then in the next scene, the hump is on the other side.
Yeah, I remember that.
And so when we don't release the emotions that literally make us sick, then it just moves around.
Yes, we all have moving humps.
Moving humps.
And unfortunately, there are more than one.
Yeah. Yeah. So with that, let's take another break and listen to a commercial sponsor here at UK Health Radio, and we'll be right back with the one and only Hale Dwoskin, author of the Sedona Method. Hale Dwoskin, you are the author of the Sedona Method and also the co-author of the book Happiness is Free and It's Easier Than You Think. How can we discover true happiness and peace of mind?
Hmm. That's a great question. That is something that we're all craving, no matter, even if we think it has to do with more money or better relationships or better health. The bottom line for most of us is we're wanting happiness, unqualified happiness, happiness for no reason. And there, what we're generally doing is looking for it in all the wrong places. If if relationships would make us happy, permanently happy, then there wouldn't be any divorce. And people would be happier in relationship. For most of us, relationships are just a lot of work. Not that we don't want to have them, but we're we don't necessarily get happiness from another person. In fact, we can't. We can't get happiness from outside of ourselves. And the same thing is true about money. There are plenty miserable millionaires and billionaires. And they're and at the same time, something that most people would think, oh, I can't be happy if I have ill health. But yet there are many people who are very unshakably happy, even though they're dying from a disease. So happiness is not dependent on circumstance at all, even though it appears that way. Now, am I saying you shouldn't have more money or better relationships or great health? No, of course not. Please do. And in fact, the more you let go, the easier that becomes. But once you discover that happiness is just simply the essence of being, which is who you are and what all is, then it always is this, whatever is apparently happening, is this, whatever it is the source of happiness. And then you bring happiness to relationships. You bring happiness to whatever's going on with health. You bring happiness to what's happening with money. And so whether or not you're succeeding in life, there is happiness. Whether or not things are going the way you'd like them to go, there is happiness. And the happiness, though, at the same time makes the body mind much more effective in life. Because if you have employees, for instance, would you rather have unhappy employees or happy employees? It's kind of a no-brainer that you would prefer to have happy employees. Uh, there's an expression in relationships: happy wife, happy life. But it's really not just wife, it's husband too. It's whoever you're in relationship with. You want to be happy, but you also want them to be happy. Well, that happiness is the basic nature of all that is, including you and me. And as that is discovered and recognized, there is this unqualified happiness that is always this. And it funnily, it also includes those times where you feel unhappy. Now, this doesn't make sense, but as you discover that happiness is completely independent of circumstance, then even if at the moment you're feeling unhappy, you realize that that is just temporary. It isn't the truth. It isn't who you are. And so you struggle with it less. And so it tends to stick around less. And happiness infuses even the things that are traumatic in the moment, or whatever is not going your way. You tend to turn situations around much more easily from that baseline of your natural beingness, which is the true source of all happiness.
Beautiful explanation. So, Hale Dwoskin, I am a medical intuitive healer. In addition to that work, I have taught yoga for 28 years. And at age 64, I still teach yoga 8 or 9 times every single week. And the practice of yoga and yoga philosophy very much informs my healing work, because in yoga philosophy, they talk about the 5 bodies: the physical body, the energy body, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. So when I'm doing a medical intuitive reading, I read those 5 levels. Now, what's interesting about what you said is in yoga, we refer to the spiritual body, there's a name for it, Ananda Maya Kosha.
Yes.
Ananda Maya Kosha, and the translation of that is the body of bliss.
Yes.
And so my question for you is, how can getting in touch with our spiritual self help us, empower us to be happier?
Yes. Well, it's a continuation of what I'm saying. And it's not like you have a spiritual self. All the koshas are actually Brahman or para Brahman. They're actually beingness. They're actually the one energy or light or love that all is. They seem denser as they get closer to the physical, but they're all made up of the same thing. And so by letting go of the thoughts and feelings and beliefs that are holding you back and being open at least to the possibility that you are beyond the koshas, that what you are is already freedom, is already wholeness, is already love and light. The more that is recognized, the more it becomes part of your living experience. Until it is also recognized that it's not your living experience, it's just life itself. We we personify or personalize everything as though it's happening to us. But it can be discovered that it isn't happening to me or you, it's just what's happening. And this sense of me and you is an illusion. It's not actually real. There is just beingness, or in yoga, it's called either Brahman or para Brahman. And that includes everything and nothing. All of that is already, there's no such thing as spiritual and unspiritual. It is all this. And so, as that is discovered and lived, it informs every kosha, every body. And it also helps there to be a transcendence of body so that there is just this. Now, that doesn't mean the body disappears. It just means that there's no longer a me who's body centered. There's just being.
Beautiful explanation, very powerful. Now let's take it back to those of us who need help. Okay.
Sure.
I think it's pretty much all of us. Okay.
Yes.
How can we let go of fear and anxiety?
Well, first off, there's an expression, I didn't make this up. Fear is false evidence appearing real.
Mhm.
And so first off, recognize, and I don't remember who I'm quoting, but it's a very common quote. Do you know who said that first? It's been around so long, I have no idea.
Yeah, couldn't tell you.
So,
Yeah.
so the first thing is when we're afraid of something, we're holding in mind what we don't want and hoping it doesn't happen, but we're still holding it in mind.
I am
So,
laughing, right? Because we all do that, right?
yes, we absolutely do that.
Yes.
The more we're afraid of something, the more we're picturing it happening. It becomes so real to us that we don't even realize that it's not happening. we're just imagining it happening or fearing it happening. And so there's a shortcut you can use to release fear. Because fear is anticipating something terrible happening on some level, you can consciously become aware of what you're expecting to happen and let go of expecting or wanting it to happen. And the fear itself dissolves. So if you want, we can do that together. So everyone can,
Absolutely. Let's practice. That's a great one to practice.
yes, absolutely. So again, just allow yourself to pause for a moment or stop. And notice that even no matter what is being experienced, there is beingness. There is this. And then allow yourself to think of something you're afraid of. And then dig a little deeper and check to see what it is you're not wanting to have happen, what you're picturing happening, and that's why you're afraid. And whatever it is, could you just welcome or allow it? Be present with it. And then, as best you can, just for now, could you let go of expecting that to happen? Could you let go of wanting it to happen? Would you? When? And could you do that again? Focus on that same thing or anything else that you're afraid of. And then dig a little deeper and see what it is, what expectation is built into the fear, what you're not wanting to have happen. Now, the mind doesn't translate the word not or never or don't. So when you're not wanting something to happen, you're picturing it happening. So whatever has come to mind, could you just simply welcome or allow it or be present with it? And then as best you can, just for now, could you let go of wanting it to happen? Could you let go of expecting it to happen? Now, again, you might go, I don't want it to happen. Well, that's the same thing. So could you just simply let that go as best you can? Would you? When? And let's do that just one more time. Focus on that thing you're afraid of. And notice there's a feeling, but there's also something that you're anticipating happening or you're not wanting to have happen, or you saw happen to someone else and you don't want it to happen to you, or you're also something you may not be wanting to happen to someone else that you care about. But all of that is picturing it, is holding it in mind, is anticipating it happening. So could you just welcome or allow that? And then as best you can, just for now, could you let that go? Just could you? Would you? When? So that's one way you can release fear. I mean, it's very powerful. I mean, you can release it just as a sensation or an emotion, but you can also let go of the what you're anticipating happening. And I've seen people do that, and whole fears and phobias drop away very quickly, sometimes in just one session.
That's amazing. So, Hale Dwoskin, we have a global audience here at the Natural Healing Show, UK Health Radio. If there was a message that you would like to give to the world right now, what would it be?
That all this sense of conflict, all this sense of turmoil, all this trouble is solvable from the inside. If if we each do our best to let go of our fear, our anger, our frustration, our depression, our anxiety, then what happens is we are contributing to the harmony and peace of the world. And at the same time, it feels terrific and it's great. And so peace starts with you. If simply railing against what we don't like in life doesn't bring peace, it just brings more conflict. But as you allow yourself to discover the peace that is at your core, it informs everything that you do or don't do. And you'll also find that you're naturally inclined to do more to support everyone else without effort. So that's what I would say. Just be what you are already.
What a beautiful message. You've been listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 bestselling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Our guest today has been Hale Dwoskin. Hale Dwoskin is the author of the Sedona Method and co-author of Happiness is Free and It's Easier Than You Think. And you can find out more about Hale Dwoskin and his very important work at his website, sedona.com. And remember, when you let go, you access very, very powerful healing energy. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.